Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I am here with my cousin and co-host,
Dylan.
And today we are discussing a movie that I have nominated as one to watch before you die. But before we get into that, Dill, we are due to change the name of this podcast. It has to happen.
What are we changing it to?
Well, Dylan, this podcast has officially become Michael McKean movies to watch before you die.
And the answer is all of them, apparently.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we agree on that.
I think Michael McKean might be the actor that has occurred in the most movies that we've talked about.
I don't know, because there's been a few movies where we've had random actors show up in multiple things.
Like who?
Leonardo DiCaprio's already been in multiple things that we did.
Like what? Great Gatsby.
Well, Shutter Island, Great Gatsby.
Yeah, but he's such a big star. I feel like he doesn't count.
We already did 2 vacation movies, so that's 2 Chevy Chases.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I should go back through and see who we've done the most of.
I'd like some stats on this.
Oh, that sounds like work, but okay, maybe.
Yeah. You signed up for it.
You can have them, but
anyway,
not right now.
Today we are talking about the 1987?
1985.
1985 movie starring Tim Curry and many others, Clue.
Yes, and I feel like this was trying to make a movie about a board game long before that was just like, we've run out of ideas.
Yeah. And I think it does it in a really, really, really good way. But again, that is an opinion. Let's just stick straight to the brass tacks. So, Dylan, tell the people what this movie is about.
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
Clue is about people coming together. They're all being blackmailed. Murders start to occur, and they are trapped in this house, and we have to find out who did the murder, where they did the murder, and with what weapon they did the murder.
Sounds very much like the board game it is based on.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like this board game, which, did you know in every other country but America, the board game is named Cluedo?
What?
Cluedo.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't look into that enough because this is America. And we are not smart enough to go with your thing. What is this, the metric system or something? I don't know.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Bald eagle flies in.
Should we hear the IMDb plot summary of Clue?
Please. I'm sure it is more eloquent.
Than my bald eagle or than my description?
Both.
My bald eagle is as elegant as it gets, like America, baby.
Sure.
6 guests are anonymously invited to a strange mansion for dinner, but after their host is killed, they must cooperate with the staff to identify the murderer as the bodies pile up.
Yeah.
I nailed that. I did not edit out me fucking that up once.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that was not a 4-time attempt.
First try, every time. Taglines?
Please.
The movie that makes a scene of the crime.
I kind of like that.
I kind of like it. It also makes me think of, this is such a non sequitur. There's a story my mom would tell growing up that if my mom and my aunt were fighting in a restaurant, my grandfather would be like, "You want to make a scene? Fine, I'll make a scene." And he would just take his shirt off in a restaurant. Like that was the solution. That it was like, yes, that it was like, you're not going to make a scene again, are you? And you know what? If either of my parents pull that once, yeah, I would never act up again either.
Wow. That's actually, stick that in your back pocket for future parenting.
That's bold as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
This one is just, it's not just a game anymore.
Meh. I get it.
It's not the worst.
Yeah.
It's not great either. It's uninspired.
Yeah. Agreed.
Murder, madness, mystery, and mayhem. More fun than you can imagine.
It's, yeah.
7 suspects, 6 weapons, 5 bodies, and 3 endings.
You see, I don't like that.
Why? Too many numbers?
No, I think it just gives away the best part of the movie.
I guess, which I feel like that's something that we'll have to discuss a lot more when it comes to opinion time.
Yeah.
One more tagline. Cluedo isn't just a board game anymore. And that's the point where I had to be like, what's Cluedo?
Yeah. Fuck you for that.
Yeah. And that is the last tagline.
What do we do next?
We can give a little more description, but there's really, this movie is similar to what is a bottle episode of television where it's like, we wanted to keep the budget low. So we came up with an episode of the show where nobody leaves the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this movie is, I'm sure it was more expensive than that because there's a lot of different stages and a lot of different rooms in this house, but it all takes place in the one location.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If we do want to get more in depth, they're all invited there, blackmailed by Mr. Body. Wadsworth, the butler, is the one who greets them all and gives them their aliases. As the night goes on, bodies start to drop. Let the bodies hit the floor, starting with Mr.
Yeah.
Body,
The bodies are hitting the floor.
which I do feel like if there was a remake, that could be a great tagline. Let the bodies hit the floor.
Okay, maybe.
It's better than Cluedo isn't just a board game anymore.
Well, yes, but
Okay.
so is a lot of things.
I'll take it. What else happens in the rough, quick version?
So essentially, they are sort of all bearing witness to these murders, and one of them, presumably, or somebody in the house, is committing these murders. So they need to work together to figure out who it is, but they also simultaneously don't trust one another because everybody has access to a weapon. Everybody has a motive to be killing people, and no one is really safe.
And they're all being blackmailed for various reasons, which I think the thing about this movie is if you really want to get bogged down in the minutia, like you can find plot holes and you can find things like that and find out like what's the reason that they're doing this? Why are they being blackmailed? And you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You just need to know that they all have a reason to be blackmailed and they have to find out who's actually committing the crimes.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think you're better off not paying too much attention to the minutia because at the end of the day, I don't want to get into opinions, but at the end of the day, there are so many possible outcomes that it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of like what is happening at that moment. You can't really worry too much about piecing everything together. It reminds me a lot of The Fugitive, where it's like you could get bogged down in the details, but at the end of the day, we've got A, we've got B, and we've got C, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I think The Fugitive is more like if you really want to look into the details, it does make sense. Whereas in this movie, it's like, yeah, if you really want to look into the details, it probably starts to fall apart, but you really shouldn't be looking into the details. It's one of those things where if you have stopped your thought process to think, well, why is this happening? Then the movie has failed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Opinion time.
Please.
In this critic's opinion,
That's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
I do know you and I were born after this movie came out.
Mhm.
So you and I have both only seen the home video version of this where it has 3 endings, and the 3 endings are that's what could have happened, but this is what really happened. And then
No, that could have happened. This also could have happened. And
This
this
is what
is what
really
actually happened.
yes. I cannot imagine a worse experience than going to the movies and seeing only one of these endings, because that would
Is
have
that-
totally derailed this movie.
Is that how it was?
In the movie theater, you got one of these endings randomly.
Oh.
So I think they thought, and we'll talk more about this in the facts. They thought the movie's going to be so good, people will go see it 3 times. And that is not what happened.
Yeah. Oh, man, that is disappointing.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me. Well, no, it doesn't. I was going to say it reminds me of Across the Spider-Verse. Apparently there were different versions in different theaters, but those are like mostly slight changes that it seems like it was just because they were still trying to figure things out at the last freaking minute.
Yeah.
This feels more like we knew what we were doing and we just made the worst creative decision possible, because when you think of the fact that this is a board game that can have multiple outcomes, the version that you and I have only ever seen, the home video version, makes total sense to have those 3 endings. And it makes even more sense because those 3 endings go in such a way that they are paced to be that way, because it gets a little bit faster each time and it skips over a little bit more each time, because it's like, you saw that already. You don't need to see it again.
Right. So, listener, if you haven't seen this movie, we kind of roughly explain this to you, but if you've ever played the game Clue, there are multiple endings of how anybody could have done the murder, and essentially you kind of figure it out as you go. And so the movie does a very good job of mimicking that, where they give you one ending and it says, it was, they walk through everything that happened and they determine that so-and-so was the murderer. I don't even remember who the first person was that it could have been.
Miss Scarlet.
Miss Scarlet. Are you sure? Was the first one?
Positive.
Okay. Then they go,
Miss
that
Scarlet
is
with one person was murdered by Yvette in that scenario.
okay. Right. And then they give you, and then this also could have happened. And they kind of walk it back and take you through it again. And it's funny because Tim Curry, who we're obviously going to talk about, is demonstrating everything that happened. And as we go from option one to option two, he gets a little faster. They skip over some things, like Dylan said, and you kind of are already there. And then they take you to another option where it was
Miss
Professor
Peacock.
Plum, Miss Peacock. They hated women in this, didn't they? Miss Peacock was the murderer. And then they finally say, but this is what really happened. And then they give you another ending where it's everybody, essentially, except
Yes,
for
everyone has murdered someone except for Mr. Green.
Mr. Green, who is working for the FBI. So it it gives you multiple options in the same way that the game would give you multiple options. And it's very exciting and it's very fun to watch. And they do a less than perfect job of explaining how it could have been these people. Like in some scenarios, one person isn't in the room when this happens, but I'd be interested actually to go back and see if that person really wasn't in the room, because you don't really remember because it was in the beginning of the movie.
If
You
you
know,
do
there
go back, it does work out that way, that it's like in the very first shot of them running into the kitchen when the cook is killed. I think Miss Scarlet and Miss Peacock both are not there the first time. You know what I
interesting.
mean?
Okay, so yeah. So
So it gives you that, but it also tells you, like, again, it's one of those things, if you think hard enough about it, well, how did they know where the secret passage is to be able to commit
right.
that murder and go back in time? Not go back in time, speaking of Christopher Lloyd in this movie, but to go back to the other room.
Yeah.
That's why it's one of those things that if you think too hard about it, it all starts to fall apart. But if you're
Yeah.
enjoying the ride, you're not going to be thinking about, like, oh, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So it's really fun and exciting, and it gives you that sort of same satisfaction as the board game does. However, if I'm going to the movies and I'm going to see a random ending, I would probably not want to go sit through, not that it's a long movie, but you figure if it's a 90-minute movie, it's like an hour and 20 minutes before you get that ending. So I don't want to sit through the same hour and 20 minutes to maybe get a different ending.
Well, it's also, I think, without the three endings, the whole thing ends up being probably like an hour and 15 to an hour and 20 minutes, which by that point, boy, you and I are very strict about, like, my ideal experience. I should be there for an hour and 30 to an hour and 45 minutes, because I'm about to
Yeah.
say, if you're only giving me an hour and 20 minutes worth of content, that's not long enough. I shouldn't call it content, but an hour and 20
Yeah.
minutes worth of film, not enough film.
Yeah. I agree. Well, what's the length of a feature film?
I think the minimum it can be is technically like 70 to 75 minutes or something like that.
I thought it was 75. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think if we're going to talk about, and I think this is a really good segue into it, the glue that holds this movie together is Tim Curry. Like without Tim Curry, I don't think this movie is half as good. And seeing him go from ending one to ending two to ending three, and the arc of that sort of like 15-minute skit is so good. And I think if you lose that, you lose so much performance from him.
He literally is asked to do the most, because I believe I think they even said, because I think there's a documentary called Who Done It, The Clue Story or something like that, where Michael McKean literally says he had twice as many lines as every other person.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, and he probably had as many lines as every other person in the last 20 minutes of the movie, because in the last 20 minutes, he is talking so fast. And I can only imagine how hard it was just to enunciate properly, because talking at a normal pace, I have a hard time enunciating every word. Meanwhile, he's nailing it for 25 straight minutes I'm sure they had trouble filming it, but it comes out beautifully.
He is so let's take a moment here. I want to appreciate Tim Curry for a second. Because also this is the second Tim Curry thing we've discussed too. Remember, he was Auntie Whispers.
Yes. We could do a lot more Tim Curry stuff. For sure.
He is just so I'm going to tell you the truth. All right. I'm going to be very honest here. I'm sitting up and everything. Here's the thing about Tim Curry. He's so striking, but not handsome. He's so funny, but not comedic. He's so talented, but not a leading man. Like, he's just so interesting. I can't think of another actor that is as prominent in like pop culture without being a shining star celebrity. You know what I mean? Like,
I think he's one of those people who he's probably like, if you ask me who is the definition of a character actor, it's Tim Curry, who's somebody who like, yeah, he's never a list that he's the star of the thing, but whenever you see him in something, you remember him.
But and he's always the same because he's so unique, but he's always so different. Like,
He
what do
can
we
play
know Tim
anything.
Curry?
He's one of those
He
people
can
who
play
can disappear into
anything.
anything.
But
Because if
also
you
have
compare
that
this,
same voice and that same accent. Like, and you just buy it. You're like, okay, sure. It's like we talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger, where it's like we're just going to ignore the fact that this gigantic man with this crazy accent is just like a quote unquote normal person. I feel the same way about Tim Curry. It's like, yeah, he's the butler. He's fucking Rocky Horror. He's the goddamn father of Elijah Thornberry. Eliza Thornberry.
he is Satan in the movie Legend. Like he can play anything. And yes, he
Anything.
sort of sounds, it's not that he changes so much, but he changes just enough that it's like, besides Legend and It, where he is in makeup and looks totally different, you always recognize him. But if I show you a screenshot of any movie of Tim Curry, you'd be like, oh, that's McHale's Navy. Oh, that's Clue. Oh, that's It. You know what I mean? You wouldn't know that you can tell instantly that they're different.
So Tim Curry in a wheelchair now.
Yeah, we talked about this on the Over the Garden Wall episode. He had, unfortunately, a pretty major stroke years ago. So he still does appearances at things like Comic Cons and he still does some voice acting and stuff like that. But he doesn't really perform anymore, which is so sad because, as we were describing, what a charismatic talent he was. And I do think the beautiful thing is that he can still receive all this praise from people about how dynamic and how wonderful his performances are at the very least, because I can tell you that anybody who's over the age of, I feel like I would say probably like 20 to 25 years old, can name something that they love Tim Curry in.
Yeah.
And this is an ensemble cast, and I think everyone does a spectacular job, but he is the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah, he really is. Did you know that he was good friends with Freddie Mercury?
I'd believe it. Tim
Like,
Curry,
to
Tim
me-
Curry, I feel like Tim Curry is the Forrest Gump of actual pop culture, where he's just like, he was everywhere and you didn't realize it.
Yeah, I'm just like shocked that those two people existed in like the same time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't think of it. Like, you don't picture them hanging out.
Is he married or was he married? No, it looks like he was never married. That's actually crazy. No?
What, that he was never married?
Yeah, let me look that up. Tim Curry, wife. Because, my next question. Oh, he has never been, but he has been with the same. Do I trust this website?
I love Gab uses the internet. Gab doesn't trust the internet.
Honestly. Well, you know how, when you're like looking at just like a gab.com, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know that I believe you. Yeah, no, never married. Wow. But doesn't appear to be gay, which was my next question.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. You ever go see it live?
No, but Zach and Allie have gone multiple times, and I feel like they've invited me to go. And it's always one of those things that I'm like, oh yeah, I totally should do that.
You should. It's great. It's a great experience.
It's not like my favorite movie or anything, but it does seem like
me
fun.
neither.
Yeah. At the same time, another live movie thing I would go to is apparently live tapings of The Room are supposed to be incredibly crazy. But
oh yeah, to me it's like it's the same thing. I really, 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 really love and appreciate Tim Curry so much. And I also feel like I should take back saying he's not handsome, because I'm looking at some younger photos of him and he's not handsome.
he's
But
definitely
generally
handsome,
speaking,
but he's not like Brad Pitt.
he's got like bug eyes to me, where he's just like got this weird thing with his face,
Well,
and
he's
one eye's a
character
little
actor
bigger
in
than
the
the
sense,
other.
you know who the other like character actor epitome of that is?
Who?
Steve Buscemi. He's a character actor talent wise where he's like Steve Buscemi, but he's better looking than Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
I feel
way
mean
better
saying that
looking
about
than
Steve Buscemi, but Steve Buscemi, wonderful person all around. Love you,
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah, of course we do. Yeah, Tim Curry, I just really, 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 really this movie warms my heart because it's like, wow, look at how lucky we are that we get to experience Tim Curry. And I really feel that way. Um, he does such a phenomenal job. There are a couple of moments in this movie that I think are sort of like low-hanging fruit laugh moments that kind of really get the job done. Like the dog shit thing in the beginning where he steps in dog shit and then everybody kind of smells it and keeps checking their shoes. Feels like a moment that doesn't really belong in this movie, but works really well.
Apparently that was so the director, this was his first movie, and he was like, literally a studio executive was like, what if you add this in? And he was like, and I didn't know to like that I could say no to things like that at the time. And so we put it in there because what I will say, you have comedies that feel like they are one type of comedy. Like if you're watching the Three Stooges, you're gonna get that physical comedy, you're gonna get slapstick. That's what I'm trying to think of. This movie has every type of comedy. You know what I mean? There's quite a few slapstick moments. There's a bunch of wordplay. There's a lot of dialogue driven setups and punchlines. But I think that is such an interesting thing about it because I think it would be bothersome if it was all one type of comedy and throwing, it's like if I was in a boxing match against a guy who can only throw one punch and it's just throwing it 100 times around. And it's like, well, I'm going to figure you out. But instead, if he has this entire arsenal of punches and he's throwing 100 punches, it's like, you know what? Some of these are landing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's plenty of it that is not hilarious, but I guarantee if you've seen this movie, there's something that stands out to you as really funny.
Yeah. There was a moment that made us both laugh out loud, and I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but it was toward the end, and I feel like Miss Scarlet did something or said something
Is it
that
the
really
1 + 2 + 2 + 1?
No, but that was also really funny. Like that was really good.
Okay, because she does a great job with the 1 + 1 +. Shut up already.
Yeah. I've got to think. I wish Corey weren't working because he might remember. But it was a moment where we both laughed out loud and we're like, "Wow!"
Tell me if you did this too. The actress in my head, I was like, "Oh, it's Susan Sarandon, isn't it?" And then I was rewatching this movie and I was like, "No, it's not."
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. I was like, "Oh, this is not Susan Sarandon."
Yeah, I don't know if other people Mandela affected that too. That I was just like,
well, I
"That's
think
Susan
that's a
Sarandon."
Rocky Horror Picture Show thing.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah,
but I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one who does that.
Yeah, no, I totally expected it to be Susan Sarandon. They look similar. What were your favorite moments?
Okay. The very first line that like stood out as really funny to me is Christopher Lloyd is in the car. I'm trying to remember which person it is that he picks up.
He picks up Miss Scarlet.
It is Miss Scarlet. So they're in the car together and she goes, "Why is the car stopped?"
Yeah.
And Professor Plum going, "It's frightened." Like,
yeah.
Christopher Lloyd just has such a way of speaking that he gives such gravitas to something so stupid.
Yes.
And this is, I feel like I'm about to waste it because I thought that this is what I was going to use for the clip at the end, but you tell him it's not true. It's not true. Is that true? No, it's not true. So it is true. A double negative. Double negative? You mean you have photographs? That sounds like a confession to me. In fact, a double negative has led to a proof positive.
Yes, I love that.
And that is said probably 2 to 3 times quicker than the pace I just said, because that is what this movie is. Like, I imagine if you are deaf and you are watching this movie with just subtitles, you're like, slow down.
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Because it is fast. The dialogue, especially, it feels like that's why I'm saying about the 3 endings, that this movie is slowly winding up. Like in the beginning, it's a little bit slower. And even slower is just like normal conversational pace. And by the end of this movie, every single person is rushing through every line and you have to be able to follow them because they're going so fast. They're going so fast. They're talking as quickly as they can. And you just have to be able to hear it because you are going to miss things and they're going to go right by you because they're talking this fast.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's kind of like why the details don't really matter, because they're talking so fast and you're kind of following like a tennis match. And it's like what happens in the interim is not important because you're just watching the ball go from one side to the other, to the other, to the other.
Well, they're not focusing on the details, so they're telling you that you shouldn't either, because the details don't matter. They're telling you, no, this person did it, then they ran back over here, and then this happened. And, you know, I really love Tim Curry chasing Michael McKean around. Michael McKean is Mr. Green, when he's just chasing him around and he's like trying to run away and he grabs him by the collar and throws him in the bathroom. And like, things are moving so fast that the people involved in the recreations are like, wait, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the physical comedy is so good too. Like watching them all run, watching them pick up the dead bodies and move the dead bodies and pretending to make out with the dead bodies. Like it's
That's
just
my favorite physical
so,
comedy moment,
yes.
because
Yeah.
it's not just the shots of there's a cop that comes in, and when the cop comes in, they have two dead bodies already. The cook from the kitchen and Mr.
Yep.
Body.
Mhm.
And so they are trying to make it look like there's not a bunch of dead bodies. And so oh my God, Colonel Mustard is pretending that he is making out with the cook while Miss Peacock is behind the cook pretending that she is the arms of the cook rubbing on him while Mrs. White is making out with Mr. Body's dead body. And twice they cut to these shots where it's like the cop's point of view and everything looks normal. And they cut to the horrifying view of what the person, Colonel Mustard, horrifyingly like having to hold her eyes open and pretending that he is like nuzzling her and just rubbing the body of this very dead woman. And Mrs. White making out with like the dead expressionless face. And even from the cop's point of view, you can see the blood of Mr. Body. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. It's farcical. Don't worry about it, because it's a great moment, which leads to another joke of the cop going up to Mr. Wadsworth, who was not with them, the butler, and going, everything's fine in there. And he's like, it is. And he's like, yeah, it's just people having a good time. This is America. It's a free country. And what does he say? I didn't know it was that free. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I also feel
It's
like
great. It's so good.
this movie is, for a movie that's set in the 1950s, it's still very politically relevant. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Um, what's the line? She was friends with socialists.
Yeah.
Every single time they make a joke about the UN, every time they make a single joke about Mrs. Peacock's husband, who's the senator, it's all very much still relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Communism is the red herring.
Communism is just a red herring.
Yep. Yep. I think the other thing that's really great about this movie is that because there are alternate endings and because things move as quickly as they do, it's very hard to watch this movie once or once every so often and remember everything. So it always feels like a new watch where you're like, oh God, oh shit, wow. You know what I mean?
And I'd say because so much is happening at the ending that I forget everything that happens before the endings.
Yeah.
Like the thing that always stands out of my mind is the sprint pace that we get to with Tim Curry explaining everything. And I forget everything else that happens before then.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are so many jokes that like you forget about because you really do remember the pinnacle of the last 15 minutes of Tim Curry just running from room to room. Even like the chandelier falling.
Which time?
Exactly. Like it's so impossible to keep all of that straight. Like I feel like unless this is your favorite movie of all time and you watch it regularly, every time you watch it, you're going to have a new experience because you're just like, you can't keep track of everything that's going on.
Well, and I'll say if I'm being critical of the movie, which to totally be critical, again, if I only saw this movie with one of the endings, what you and I keep talking about, I feel like, is the fact that the third act is so electric and so well paced and so wraps you in that if you only get one of those endings, the first two acts aren't enough to put it over that with just like, if I watched the first two acts and just saw the first ending where Mrs. Scarlet did it or Miss Scarlet did it, I'd just be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best part of this movie going in, especially like Corey had never seen it, so I was excited to watch it. I hadn't seen it in many years. The only thing that I went in knowing was that there were multiple endings.
Yes, and it's the endings that make the movie work because it's also only by the third ending that you get the most direct reference to the game where it's like, and if you want to know who killed, Mr. Body, or no, if you want to know who killed the butler, it was me in the hall with the gun. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's like, that's the moment where you get that. And then you have what is the most ridiculous closing line of all time for a movie. Like, when it's rare that you get a movie that ends on a freeze frame. No, it's not that rare. It's not that rare in the 80s, but it's rare that you get a movie that ends on a line like this. You remember what the last line in the movie is?
No.
It's Mr. Green going, I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife. And
yes,
it's just like,
yes.
Freeze frame, music comes in blaring, and you're like, oh,
yes.
okay. Like,
that's funny.
That's your out.
It's because he said he was being blackmailed because he was gay.
Yes.
So it's
Which
like he wasn't who he said he was. He worked for the FBI and he's also not gay. Ha ha ha.
he's got a bunch of great moments. He's really good in the movie, Michael McKean.
So good. And it's crazy because the really like my like first time really wrapping my head around who Michael McKean was when I watched Better Call Saul and he plays Saul's brother. And I was like, "Oh, this guy is really good." And then watching, other things of his, I'm like, "Oh my God, that's the guy from Better Call Saul." Like I can't believe that he had a life before Better Call Saul.
And what's funny is because I haven't watched Better Call Saul, I'm like, oh, the guy from Spinal Tap and the guy from Best in Show.
Right. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh shit, it's Saul's brother."
Oh, you know what moment I love? And it's a moment it's a callback to Michael McKean, but it is a Wadsworth moment. It's Michael McKean slaps Miss Peacock and goes, I had to stop her shouting.
Yeah.
And Tim Curry does such a good, not an accurate imitation, but it's Tim Curry doing that line in the same tone. And it's just so much funnier hearing him do it. And I can't do it justice, but it's so funny hearing him as Wadsworth pretend to be Mr. Green.
Yes. I love that. Anytime you have an actor who can do like a double layer like that, where it's like your character pretending to be a different character and not you as the actor pretending to be that actor, it's just like those two layers are so good.
I can only imagine how confusing that is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like you can't overthink it, right? Like he's playing the butler and now the butler is mimicking him, but that can be done very well or very poorly.
He's the dude playing the dude disguised as another dude.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you'll get into, and that's why, not to go back to this, but that's why that TV show Orphan Black, starring Tatiana Maslany, is so fucking incredible because she plays a bunch of clones and she'll be one clone mimicking another clone dressed as a different clone. It's like she's got like 3 or 4 layers where it's like, holy shit. And you see every little nuance. It's amazing.
God, I feel like even what I wrote down is mostly writing down about the endings. So I
Yeah.
do feel like my biggest criticism by far of this movie is that the first 2 acts are like okay and not that memorable.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that for a movie that really relies on you not paying too much attention to the details, the beginning feels like it's giving a lot of details where it's like you all seem to know each other and you're all being blackmailed, but who's the host? He's not here yet. Oh, here he is. Oh, we all have these weapons. And I get what it's building up to, but it does feel like the pace of the movie makes you feel like the details are going to be way more important, that by the end you're like, none of that really mattered.
It doesn't really matter, but it makes sense in the vein of what it's playing off of. You know what I mean? Because as
sure.
a murder mystery movie, it feels like that is the cliche setup that it has to do.
Dylan,
What?
You just triggered me with the words murder mystery. I have the craziest fucking story. Can I tell you right now? Is this an okay time to segue?
Did you murder someone, Gab?
Yeah, but I'm not going to admit it on the podcast. So I have these 2 friends named Sarah and Jeff. Sarah and Jeff were high school sweethearts. They went to Walt Whitman High School, which obviously you're familiar with. We grew up not too far from there. And they live in Brooklyn. They're married. They have 2 dogs. They're great people. Anytime I've ever run a race, they have come to see me run. Like they're amazing. I love them. My own parents have never done that, just for context. So Sarah and Jeff were gifted for Christmas a murder mystery game from their friends in California. So their friends in California bought them a murder mystery game and sent it to them. Merry Christmas. Right? You with me so far?
Yeah, I follow.
Okay. This game is like a one and done. It's not like Clue. It's like you get the evidence, you get the witness statements, you get all the photos, you get and then you play and you figure it out. But once you played it once, like you know the ending. You can't play it again.
Yeah, it's one of those like To Catch a Killer type board game type things.
Yeah. And so I would have thought that it was like a party game where people had to dress up and you need like 10 to 12 people, but apparently the 2 of them were just able to play it. And so they waited for a night when they could like really enjoy it. They had plenty of time, whatever, because it's literally a one and done. It's not like you can experience it a second time. So they're planning it all out and they have this night and they pour themselves a couple of glasses of wine and they're sitting down. This is like maybe 2 weeks ago. And they separate everything out. They read their rules. They've got the evidence. They've got the witness statements, and they've got all these photos. And it's like a high school themed one where you're trying to figure out like who did something at a high school.
Okay.
And so they have this big class picture, right? And it's one of those classic, like, 3 photo lengths long, and everyone is sitting on the bleachers. And the front row is obviously all photoshopped people because those are like your potential murderers.
Yeah.
But the photo is their class picture. It's the Walt Whitman class of 2004 high school picture. And like, they were like, that's me and that's you. Like,
Wait.
so that's so and so.
Like the person who bought the game for them made it that way?
No, Dylan. Like the game, and she actually, the ending of the story is she reached out to the game company and was like, what the fuck? And the game company was like, oh, we purchased that photo from a reputable stock photo website. Like, any relation is purely coincidental. But the game, somehow their class picture wound up on a stock photo website, but it's them.
That's terrifying because
How
I would assume
crazy
I
is
would be
that?
like, you are lying to me. You are planning this, and you've just told me how you're going to murder me.
Exactly. Like,
when
it's
are you coming?
creepy.
How do I defend myself?
But apparently it was that they bought it. They proved it. They were able to show that they bought it from a stock photo website. But now they're like, why is our high school photo on a stock website? Like, how you're using my image and all of our images for profit, but also like, what are the fucking chances that you open a board game and you are the photo?
That's terrifying. No, I gotta tell you, like, I'd be like, well, we're not sleeping tonight. Like,
Yeah.
that's horrifying. And I'm trying to think of how they could do that, and I'm guessing it's because you as a kid don't have to like sign a piece of paper because you're at school. So I'm sure the school has an agreement with the photographer that it's like, you take the photos for us, then you can use the photos for whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So I guess that
you
makes
own
sense,
the photos.
but it's super weird.
I screen recorded her Instagram story about the whole situation. So I just sent it to you. Literally fucking batshit bananas crazy. Like, the people who bought it live in California. Like, it's not like it was a local thing from a local game store. Like, this is like, anybody can buy this. And what are the fucking chances that it's them, both of them, in that photo? And other people were able to like corroborate, like, yep, that's me, that's my brother, that da.
No, I truly assume that you're saying this to me, Gab, and I'm like, if you send me a copy of this game, I'm going to be so fucking pissed at you because I'm like, I will never be able to open it because I'm certain that there's a picture of me inside of it.
Yeah, no.
Like, they are liars and they are taking pictures of everyone. This is the government. This is the deep state. This is Big Brother. I will say though, once you get past the creepiness of it, it must be very like, well, you very much feel into the game now because you're literally in it.
Yeah, but like, I can't. I sincerely can't believe like the chances of that happening are like 0.000000000. It's not a big high school. Like,
I don't like it.
how
I don't
did
like
you
it at all.
see? Did you
Yes,
see
I
like
find
the
it very
text
scary.
at the end? I
You
can't
mean
believe it.
from the people? Like
Yeah,
from the
just like
makers
the
of the
whole
game?
thing. Yeah,
I saw from the makers of the game at the end that they were like, we did actually buy this. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it.
fucking crazy.
It's like if you bought Monopoly and your head was on Mr. Moneybags, you'd be like, what the fuck? Parker Brothers, what did you
Yeah.
do? How did you do this?
I'm gonna look and see really quick if there's an update. I don't think there is.
It's also the fact that it's a murder mystery game that makes it so much worse. Like,
Yeah,
if you were like,
no update.
I can't even think of another example where it's like, if you opened up Guess Who and the people were all people you knew, no, that's still horrifying. That's, you know what? That might be the one game that I'd be like, that's worse. If it was Guess Who and you open it up and it's all
Guess
pictures
Who.
of you and the people you know, it'd be like, is it your best friend? Like,
How have you ever seen the people that play Guess Who, but you're not allowed to describe what they look like? It's like, has your person worked at a has your person been a Starbucks barista? Or like, did your person vote for Bernie Sanders?
no,
It's
that
so
seems
fun.
so much harder.
Yeah, it is, but it's really funny because you can't say like, do they have blonde hair? It's like, well,
Let me ask you a
do they have a
question.
trust fund? Yeah.
The actual board game of Clue, do you like it?
Well, here, let me preface that by saying I haven't played it in many years, but I do remember it being my favorite board game. Now, I want to say I do remember your favorite board game. You had two in terms of my memory, and both of them sucked.
What games?
Trouble and
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, those are both fun.
I know you always
Those
wanted
are
to
both
play
much
them.
more fun than Clue.
No, Clue is fun.
Oh, Clue I think is terrible.
Really? I remember
Maybe
really
it's just that
liking it.
I can't figure it out. I don't understand how to get what's in the envelope without it being a very boring, very long procedure.
Yeah, I've always had fun. I actually remember one time I was playing with my mom and the phone rang and she got up and answered the phone, and when she came back, I solved the mystery and she was convinced that I cheated. And
Because
I
you
was like,
cheated.
"No. No, I really didn't. I was just really good at that game."
She's told me about this. You cheated.
You're both full of shit.
Um, I would so much rather watch this movie than play the Clue board game. Which I feel like with most
I mean,
board
I
games, it's
agree.
like, would you rather watch Battleship the movie or play Battleship the game? It's like, please, please don't
Right.
put the movie on. Like,
Well, I don't even remember there being a Battleship movie.
here's what else you don't remember. Rihanna was one of the stars of it.
No.
Yes. It was Rihanna, Taylor Kitsch, and I want to say Liam Neeson were the stars of it.
Interesting.
And at the end of the movie, like old army veterans have to save the day. I'm pretty sure. I do feel
Wow.
like for a while they were like, that's the goal. We're going to start making board games into every movie. Like, I think when Battleship came out, they were like, also in development, Monopoly, the movie. And I'm like, isn't that just like Wall Street? Greed is good.
Yeah,
Like,
honestly.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think I have too many more big opinions about Clue. Like I said, most of this movie is about the ending. I feel like if you sit through the first hour of this movie and you hate it, give it another 20 minutes.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, should we get to the facts?
We should get to the facts.
Face the facts, ducks.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
We'll start with our ratings where we normally do. On
Okay.
IMDb, this has a 7.2 out of 10. On the Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter, it has a 71% with an average rating of 6.4 out of 10, 27 fresh reviews, 11 rotten. An audience score of 86% with an average score of 4.2 out of 5. The movie had a budget of $15 million and grossed $14.6 million worldwide.
Oh, so close.
Not really, because you want to double your budget at least.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying it, typically you don't hear 15 and 14.6. Typically it's like,
Would
You
you like
did
me
it
to
or you
round up
didn't.
to make you feel better?
no. I don't need to. I'll never feel better.
Okay. Oh, that's awful. Okay. Critics consensus. A robust ensemble of game actors elevate Clue above its schematic source material, but this farce's reliance on novelty over organic wit makes its entertainment value a roll of the dice.
Huh.
Roger Ebert gave the movie 2 stars. He said, if this were a better movie, that might mean you'd have to drive all over town and buy 3 tickets to see all the endings. With Clue, though, one ending is more than enough.
I think Roger Ebert can be a little bit of a prick.
I think Roger Ebert sometimes likes to hit you with the finisher. Like Roger Ebert was like, guess what, bitch? Like this is a Roger Ebert choke slam.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, why?
I get it. If I went to the theater and just saw one of those endings, I'd be pissed.
I
Like
guess.
I really do think if at the time I saw this in the theater, I think it's such a terrible gimmicky idea. And I would feel like I'm like, so you just want me to pay for this movie 3 times? Go fuck
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Okay, heard. Agreed.
Ed Gonzalez from Apollo Guide. The greatest thing about this movie is the way it brings the game's little details to life.
Sure.
Kevin Thomas from the LA Times. It's not the least bit scary or suspenseful, but instead quickly grows tedious. The more you struggle to keep track of the constantly multiplying plot developments, the harder it gets to care who did it. To Kevin, I say, were you supposed to be scared?
Yeah, seriously.
Like, I don't think the movie's ever actually trying to scare you.
No.
Also, I feel like he says exactly what we're saying you shouldn't do. He's like, as I was trying to focus on every detail, I got really
Yeah.
upset. I'm like, fuck you, Kevin. Nerd.
He's got like the board with all the pictures and the thread connecting them.
And the last one, I did not have anything from Juicy Cerebellum, but I came up with a just as ridiculous sounding name, I feel like. Jeffrey M. Anderson from Combustible Celluloid.
Okay.
If you're open to a weirdly atmospheric comedy that dashes from deadpan to manic and back again, it's a delight.
Yeah,
I think
I'd
that's
agree.
accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bringing back, I have a couple letterbox reviews.
Okay, good. I like these.
Branson Reese. My dad got in so much trouble for showing me this as a kid because I started saying, I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife at school.
That is amazing.
And this one is from Reese. Instead of with an S, this one's spelled with a C. The people that think Tom Cruise has the best run in Hollywood have obviously never watched Tim Curry's Oscar-worthy running in this film.
Agreed.
He
Completely.
certainly would have won the best running Oscar for 1985.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No question.
Although it does depend what movie Tom Cruise was in 1985. He's tough.
I don't like Tom Cruise.
I hate Tom Cruise the person. Tom Cruise the actor is okay, but Tom Cruise the runner, unstoppable.
All right.
Lily, it would have been better with the detective who has a southern accent played by Daniel Craig, but it was still pretty good, I guess. Have you not seen Knives Out? Because that's just saying it'd be better if it was Knives Out.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen Knives Out.
Oh, you got to see Knives Out. Knives Out is
Okay.
spectacular.
Okay.
Benjamin Rosser, last one. Tim Curry once again traps some people in a creepy old mansion, but it's not nearly as kinky, -half star, or gay, -half star this time.
Yeah.
So it lost points for kinky gayness.
Yeah. Which, you know what? You come for the kinky gayness, but you stay for the Tim Curry.
You could have stopped at you come. The movie was directed by Jonathan Lynn, who also directed My Cousin Vinny and The Whole Nine Yards.
Oh, I've seen half of those.
This was the first movie he ever directed. The screenplay was by Jonathan Lynn, the director, and the story was by Jonathan Lynn and John Landis, who also wrote The Blues Brothers, An American Werewolf in London, and Yes Minister. John Landis apparently came to Jonathan Lynn and gave him pretty much the entire first 2/3 of the story, said, and then the butler says, I know who did it. And Jonathan Lynn said, and who did it? And he went, I don't know. That's why I'm hiring a writer.
That's incredible.
The movie stars Tim Curry as Wadsworth, who you probably know it from the things we mentioned already. Do I need to say it again? Oh, here's what I wrote down.
Thornberrys.
Nigel Thornberry from the Wild Thornberries. And because I'm trying to come up with random things, the professor with the weirdly long nipples from Scary Movie 2. Yeah.
Okay.
He also played Gomez Adams in the TV movie Addams Family Reunion, which I feel like he'd be a really good Gomez Adams.
Yeah, he would be.
Yeah. Eileen Brennan as Mrs. Peacock, who you may know from Jeepers Creepers, Murder by Death, and as one of the stars of Private Benjamin, whatever that show was.
Okay.
Madeline Kahn as Mrs. White, who you may know from Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles and a bunch of other Mel Brooks stuff. Christopher Lloyd as Professor Plum, who was Rasputin and Anastasia, and he was in 84 episodes of Taxi as Reverend Jim. You don't know him from anything else. He was never in anything else famous.
Yeah, no, that was it. That was his run.
Poor guy.
Still
Michael
alive?
McKean. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's like 85.
Yeah.
He's a treasure.
Yeah. They're going to start going, Dill.
Stop saying that. I don't want to think about that.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
I don't like to think about it. I don't like to think about it.
Hey.
Michael McKean as Mr. Green, who you may know from Better Call Saul.
And that's it. And the other movies we talked about on this podcast.
He also played in Damn it. He also played in the movie Small Soldiers, the characters of Insaniac and Freakenstein.
Okay.
Yeah. Martin Mull as Colonel Mustard, who you may not remember was the DJ in Jingle All the Way. And he was also
shit, really?
Yeah.
No
the one
idea.
who Arnold Schwarzenegger threatens to beat up.
Yeah.
And he was also the principal in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And he's in that episode of SVU where he's telling people not to treat HIV and is a terrible doctor.
Don't treat HIV. Very good advice.
Not a good guy in that one.
Why was he doing that? What was the point? He was trying to get them all to die?
Because he's a bad conspiracy type doctor guy.
Are there conspiracy theorist doctors?
Oh, of course there are. There's conspiracy theorists, everything.
Interesting. Okay.
There are people in our government who are conspiracy theorists.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah.
And Leslie Ann Warren as Miss Scarlet, who you may know from Victor Victoria, and who was apparently in a video. I swear this was on her IMDb. I was not doing any other searching to see this. This is a straight to video type thing. Forehead titties, where women get men to take them seriously by wearing miniature model breasts on their foreheads.
Oh, what year is that from?
That was a more recent thing, I'm pretty sure. So let me double check that real quick
That
because
has
it's
to be like a
worthwhile.
college humor sketch.
It's definitely like a sketch or straight to video type of thing. Um, Let me find it. It's worthwhile.
Oh, boy.
I promise. You should all be Googling this. It's from 2010.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, that suits the time period. You know who she reminds me of? Do you remember the TV show oh God, with David Spade playing a character named Finch?
Just Shoot Me.
Just Shoot Me.
Wendy Malick,
Who's
is that who you're going to say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
You know who else is in Forehead Titties?
Spell titties.
Tittaes.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
did
saying this wrong.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
thought
Forehead
you were
Titties.
okay.
This is Forehead Titties.
Okay.
So watch it. Starring Taraji P. Henson, Marion Cotillard, William Fichtner, and Leslie Ann Warren.
Wow. So she had a that was a strong cast.
It's a very strong cast of titties.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe that'll be our next mood watch before you die.
Perhaps. What other facts do you have?
Oh yeah, that's what I was doing right now. I got distracted by the titties.
Yeah.
The
as
music was
men
by
do.
John Morris, who also did the music for Spaceballs, Young Frankenstein, and Johnny Dangerously.
Oh, I love that movie. You were a real prick about that movie.
I regret nothing. Let's see. 3 endings were shot, a different one shown at each theater. All 3 are included on the video and DVD. In some cities, the newspaper print ads indicated which version was being shown at each theater, citing as ending A, ending B, or ending C.
Hmm.
Which again, though, if you went and saw ending A, would you really be in the newspaper like, well, I gotta see ending B next?
No, not at all. Especially if ending A is arguably the least exciting one.
The color of each character's car is the same color as their playing piece in the game.
Yep. Cool.
Madeline Kahn's flames on the side of my face, that's ad-libbed.
That was very funny. I did love that moment.
Madeline Kahn said it's an ability of hers. She can talk without saying anything.
Yeah, same.
Let's see here. Carrie Fisher was originally cast to play Miss Scarlet.
I would love that.
She ended up in rehab for drug addiction 4 days before filming started. And she was saying like, no, I can still do it. I'll just leave rehab during the day, come shoot and go back at night. She was fine with it. The director was fine with it. The producer was fine with it. The studio said, no, we're not doing that.
Well, good for them. And honestly, good for what's her face?
Leslie Ann Warren.
Yeah, she did great.
She really is great. Everybody's great in the movie.
Yeah.
The singing telegram girl is played by the guitarist for the Go-Go's, Jane Wadlin.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. The person whose idea it was to have different endings in different theaters was John Landis, who then did not direct this movie. He's a famous director who then, when it was time to direct this movie, said, I'm going to go direct another movie called Spies Like Us. You take it, Jonathan Lynn. Yeah. The cast spent so much time laughing on the set that Michael McKean, before each take, would say to everyone, something terrible has happened here. And he said about that, he was like, you're living in a fake world and you have to try and make it real. It's not funny if it doesn't mean too much to the people it's happening to. It has to be completely life or death. So it became a funny little phrase, but really it was just our adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, the humor doesn't work if the characters are in on the humor.
Yes, if you think it's funny, it's not funny. And none of them are like acting like it's a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
There is still allegedly a Clue remake in the works. Supposedly, the only person attached to be in it is Ryan Reynolds. I hope that does not happen.
Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know about that. We don't need another one.
No. You should be doing remakes of movies that don't work, not remakes of movies that do.
I completely agree. But the problem is, if you have a movie that doesn't work, nobody's going to want to see the remake because they're like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah.
But this worked. And we honestly, like, I love this movie. I don't need another one.
Before Tim Curry was cast as Wadsworth, it was going to be Rowan Atkinson. And it was turned down because the studio was like, we don't know who that is.
Interesting. I wouldn't want Rowan Atkinson.
I totally could see a version of it. I don't think it'd be as good as Tim Curry, but I could see the version of it. But it's hard to say. You know what I mean? Like, now that you've seen Tim Curry and you're like, he's so good. It's hard to be like anybody else would have done a good job.
Yeah.
People who helped write allegedly with the script are Stephen Sondheim
Nah.
and Anthony Perkins.
Who's that?
Anthony Perkins is Norman Bates from the movie Psycho.
Oh,
So
I was
they
like, Ann
allegedly
Perkins.
both helped write this movie in some way, which I think is like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. But I guess, I mean, they're both kind of qualified.
I guess the last thing is the person who played Mr. Body is an actor named Lee Ving, who was
Yeah.
also a rock star with the band Fear. So they wanted a rock star in the movie to get people in the seats. That's what the studio wanted. So Jonathan Lynn was like, I will cast somebody, but I'm going to cast them in the smallest role. So they're going to be Mr. Body. The one person who was named as somebody they also considered was Gene Simmons from Kiss, who was considered for Mr. Body.
Oh, I felt like Leaving, which by the way, hilarious name, was so bad.
How? Because he really doesn't do anything. Like, you forget that he's in the movie.
I just feel like he was not menacing. You don't get the feeling that he really knows what's going on. And obviously at the end they kind of explain that where they're like, he's the butler.
Yeah,
But
and some of the endings, he's not menacing because he's not even the actual bad guy.
right. But I just feel like he looked like in a sea of seasoned vets, he was obviously not an actor.
I mean, it's fair because he is actually
Not
the
an actor.
most rookie of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also read somewhere that every one of his lines is dubbed and said by somebody else. It's not
Mm.
credited that he's dubbed by anybody, and it's not credited who did the dubbing, obviously, but it's a weird thing to hear. And like, I saw an interview with him in the Clue documentary, and I was like, I don't know if that sounds like Mr. Body or not, but keep in mind, this is an interview 30 years later, so maybe he just
Yeah.
wouldn't sound the same. But it's an interesting thing that I thought that I was like, why, if that's true, why could he just not
Yeah.
talk on the set? Like, that seems so strange.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory.
He also apparently had a huge crush on Leslie Ann Warren, but he said he was married at the time. And he was like, if only I hadn't been married. Which
Oh
I'm like,
God.
I guess good for you that you were
Yeah, we
like,
love
I am
to
currently
hear that.
married, but okay.
I think if he were dubbed, it might explain why you feel very like disconnected to that character, or I feel disconnected to that character.
Yeah, it does make sense at the end of the day that it's like, when you think of characters, it's an ensemble cast, but there's only the characters who are the game pieces matter. Mr. Body doesn't matter. The motorist, the cop, the singing telegram girl, those characters
Yvette.
don't matter. Yvette still matters, and Yvette does enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yvette
I
and
suppose
Wadsworth
she
are like not playable characters in the game, but they still matter.
Yeah, that's fine.
But everybody else who is more ancillary, no, it doesn't matter. I think the guy who plays the cop does a really good job, but he, like, at the end of the day, it's not an important role.
Yeah.
All right, Gab, I think we should get to some mail.
Okay, well then I agree.
Mail time!
When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
We've got a bunch of mail this week because one of our shorts blew up. So
Broke the
Well, I
internet,
blew up.
baby.
yeah, we broke the internet. We are the Kardashians. Oh God. All right. So first I'm gonna start with an email from the one and only Keen Machine.
Keen Machine.
Greetings, Dylan and Gab. I'm so sorry I've fallen behind on my podcast listening. It isn't you, it's me. However, it's been long enough since my presence has been absent from this podcast, so I'm back to fill the void I'm certain you were feeling. As for meaningful feedback, I have none. But nevertheless, I can find ways to reach my word count and still get a passing grade. Therefore, allow me a moment to say a few words that may, in some way, venerate your time. For example, while it may be apparent to some, others may find it less obvious that I am, in fact, undoubtedly, honestly, candidly, truthfully, notably, verifiably, arguably, and interestingly fond of the Oxford comma. And if you don't use it, you're wrong. Be sure all the grammar is correct in this email. Also, not to step on anyone's toes, but I do have a pressing question. What is your favorite type of cheese? Sincerely, with regards, cordially, thanks, cheers, respectfully, yours, keep it keen, Keen Machine.
I love an Oxford comma.
I guess. You know, commas are important, but grammar in general is okay. Not my favorite.
Interesting. You have good
Mm.
grammar.
Oh, I don't think I do, but thank you.
I mean, I've seen some doozies out there. Um, my favorite type of cheese is anything that is hard on the harder side, and hear me out, has like sawdust on the side. You know, when it's like a little dusty.
Gab
I
gets a
think
cheese at the lumberyard.
yeah. I go to Home Depot. Um, I don't know. It's a dry and crumbly and it's like got flakes. I can give you no more detail than that. I was vegan for 6 years. I'm not
Gab
like
goes to
the
Home
most
Depot
well
and
versed.
says, "Dip this cheddar for me."
No, I don't like cheddar.
I'm a red, white, and blue-blooded American, so I'm gonna have to go with good old American cheese,
Oh my God, you're a
pasteurized.
psycho. Are you serious?
I'll probably cheddar, I guess. I'm a
That's such
simple
a.
man.
Do you remember those Baby Bell like red circles that you had to peel the wax off of?
Yes, Zach loved those.
Yeah, I know he did. I ate one time and didn't know that you were supposed to take the red stuff off.
So you just ate tinfoil?
Yeah, no, it's not tinfoil, it's wax.
Oh, so I guess it's edible, just not nutritionally beneficial.
It didn't taste good, and I did not ever eat them again.
The wax did not mix well with the cheese. That's why the worst snack of all time is wax lips.
I don't think I've ever had one, but it doesn't seem like food.
It's one of those things that I feel like every couple of years I would get on Halloween as a kid, and I'd be like, "Fuck you! Why
Yeah.
would you do this? You may
Yeah.
as well give me a fucking apple."
You know what I remember? We used to have Passover at Gog and Pop's house, and they would put out like circus peanuts. You remember those?
Yeah, those suck.
Just it's like styrofoam.
I'd rather eat actual peanuts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd rather eat the circus.
I'd rather just get nutted.
Ew, okay, next.
That was too much. Okay, next we're going to the comments. Scott Cameron got this in like 2 hours after we recorded last week. So this is a comment on Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Okay.
Whoopi Goldberg played Guinan in Star Trek The Next Generation and the film Star Trek Generations. I'm going to skip the description of Guinan,
Thank you.
but she can see the future. Generations was the film where Patrick Stewart's Picard meets Shatner's Captain Kirk. Jonathan Pryce also played the president. In the first two live action G.I. Joe movies, who was Jumpin' Jack Flash in
Cool.
Jumpin' Jack Flash.
And the High Sparrow.
And the High Sparrow. And he was in Pirates of the Caribbean, but I don't remember his name.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Easily the best part of the second G.I. Joe movie, Title of Retaliation, was Pryce as the president, while Zartan, G.I. Joe's answer to the chameleon from Spider-Man, was impersonating the president and Pryce just having fun with the role. I also thought when I first saw the G.I. Joe movies that Pryce played the president in the X-Men movies, but that was Joseph Summer, not Jonathan Pryce. I don't know who that second actor is. And now we have some comments that came from Horde Bound and from the shorts. Aaron Holloway, oh man, grown up with this one. I don't have much to say to that. Lanola Cola, I almost burst out laughing from the Mike Tyson's Eat His Children line. Also, do you think there will be a revival of talking animal movies for major film studios?
I hope not.
I kind of think that there will always be a market for those because there's always a market for kids' movies.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be really technical about it, even though it's animated, Illumination just put out that movie Migration, where it's just a bunch of talking birds, isn't it?
That is true. Yeah.
There's always a market for talking animals.
Yeah.
Bluey, right? That's a very popular
Bluey.
kids shows.
Yeah, what's
Blue's
up
Clues.
with that?
We all remember Blue's Clues.
Of course. Well, although that dog didn't really talk.
That dog mumbled.
That dog went, "Meow," and that was it.
You're right. You have good point, counterpoint. You are
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay.
And now we move on. Lynn Reese, this was a sweet movie. Scott Cameron. So, pizza or lack thereof had a domino effect on your lives. That's in response to my dominoes. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm right guy.
Yeah.
It helps that I just listened to the podcast episode today at work.
Oh, that's great. I started it today. I didn't finish it. It also made me depressed. So
I do feel like a weirdo every time because like I do try and listen back to the episodes at work, but I'm like, it just takes one person somehow catching what I'm listening to be like, what a narcissist. What a weird fucker. He's just listening to himself.
you know what happens to me? I'll be listening to the podcast and I'll hear you say something and I'll think what my response is in that moment. And then I say it and I'm like, I know myself so well.
Oh, it's not you thinking of a better response?
No, it's always me
Okay.
thinking of exactly what I said.
Gab's like 2 for 2. Nailed it.
I'm just like, wow, I am authentic.
You know, go with your gut, respond how you'd actually respond, and I guess it's entertaining to at least 10 to 20 people each week.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We got another comment from Scotty. Scotty Cameron, of course. We're on a first name basis.
Yeah.
He's the
yeah,
only
yeah.
Scotty.
Yeah.
There are other Scotts, but no other Scotties.
Yeah. Okay. Continue, please.
Should I get on with this? Am I filibustering?
You are.
Do you remember in Hey Arnold, that lady who's like, please, you have to find my Scotty dog?
Yes, I do.
That's the only other Scotty, the Scotty dog.
I got it. Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Me leaving a comment on the Jumpin' Jack Flash episode about Whoopi Goldberg and Jonathan Pryce on Tuesday at 7:40 Central Standard Time, hoping it was submitted in time. The track At the Speed of Force plays, and Ray Fisher says it's too late, followed by Nicolas Cage saying, too late, too late, too late, over and over again. Each time Cage gets more manic as he says, too late. Oh, well, there's always the next episode. And that episode is now. Another comment from Scotty Cameron. Scotty was like, I'm getting them all in.
Jeez.
It's been so long since I saw Homeward Bound. I had the film on DVD as a kid because it was about cats and dogs.
DVD.
And I thought
Oh
it-
my God.
I still buy DVDs.
No,
actively.
no. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, that's a movie that we grew up with on VHS. And he's saying as a kid, he had it on DVD. That's crazy.
Very true. I can tell you as a kid, I definitely owned this one on VHS.
I remember it.
And I thought it was good because the pets make it back home. I never thought much of it as I got older and eventually just started writing it off as one of those dumb pet movies of the late 90s, early 2000s, like the Air Bud movies.
Late
which I
90s,
also-
early 2000s. It's from 93.
Well, that's like how during the Homeward Bound episode, I went, Mike Tyson's in his 50s, and you went, no, he's not. He was 57, and you're like, he's basically in his 60s. Like, I was like, what? So we're all manipulating numbers however we feel like, I guess.
Fine.
I eventually sold all those pet movies with a bunch of other movies and video games to vintage stock, except the first Cats and Dogs movie, maybe. What? Cats and Dogs sucks.
I don't know.
Perhaps I was just too old for that. I only rented the second Cats and Dogs movies, titled The Revenge of Kitty Galore. I never even knew there was a third one, Paws Unite, until a few minutes ago. That's the other thing about talking animals movies, or animal movies in general. There's always an abundance of straight-to-video sequels for the dumb kids who will watch them.
Yep.
The kids aren't dumb. The parents are like, this will pacify you.
Yeah.
Did you know there's like 17 Air Bud movies?
Yes, I did.
The football one, he's golden receiver.
Very cute. What were your like two main pacify movies as a child? Because I have two and they are buck fucking wild.
Well, I feel like from what you told me, it's apparently Flipper.
Flipper for sure.
I loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and I loved the Power Rangers movies as a kid.
Yeah.
The one with
that's
Ivan
right.
Ooze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was relentlessly asking for Mary Poppins. That Dick Van Dyke British accent really stuck with me.
Mary Poppins.
Every day's a holiday with Mary. Which
We're not
Corey,
even like, it's not even making fun of British people. It's just making fun of Dick Van Dyke.
it's truly just him. That accent is heinous. So that was the first one. And the second one was, and I hope you remember this. I was obsessed to the point where my parents started hiding it from me because they didn't want to watch it anymore, with a taped version, like a straight to video version of Mary Martin as Peter Pan live on Broadway.
I do not remember this.
Apparently, and I vaguely remember it, but apparently Mary Martin was like somebody, like a famous actress, I guess. I don't know what else she's been in, but she played Peter Pan, and Captain Hook was, I think, no, I wanted to say Dustin Hoffman, but he played it in Pan.
In Hook.
But in Hook, whatever, in whatever abbreviated version. But I know the dog, you know how like Wendy and her brothers have a dog? It was two people in a dog suit.
The dog doesn't say anything.
But it was like it was like a pantomime horse suit, but for a dog. So one guy was the ass, and it just like I just like walked around on stage. But my parents said it was so fucking horrifyingly bad that they started hiding it and being like, it's lost. I don't know. We can't find it. Why don't you watch literally anything else?
You know what? I totally get that because I remember there was a week where we were in Seattle watching our niece and nephew, and this was like the peak of Frozen, and they just were like, we just finished Frozen, and they were like, let's watch it again. Sing-along version. I was like, whoa, easy there, kiddos. I was like, how about anything else? Like, I was like, there are
Literally anything.
millions of movies. How about another one?
Yeah. Nope. Not for
We watched
me.
Frozen again, yeah.
Peter Pan or bust.
I guess Flipper. Maybe I have to do Flipper at some point because apparently I did love it once.
I'm not watching it. So
No, come on. Elijah
All
Wood and Paul Hogan? I mean, come on.
Paul Hogan related to Hulk?
No.
You didn't think you
I
didn't
should have taken the opportunity to go, they're brothers.
Yeah, like hook, line, and sinker. Failure on your part. All right, keep going.
Where was I? I don't know if I'm up to a rewatch after what Gab said. I just had 2 cats die of sudden death.
Don't
Well,
oh
that's
my
sad.
God. Don't you fucking don't go anywhere near it. Honestly, ever again for the rest of your life.
It's a great movie, but
Sally!
give it a couple weeks. They were also extremely old on me, and I had a sleepless night a few weeks ago because my dogs ran away and spent the entire night looking for them until my brother and I found them and brought them home at like 5 a.m. It may not be the worst pet movie for my emotions. Like, let's say, oh my God, Giselle showed me this movie, Hachi, A Dog's Tale, which destroyed me when I saw it. Have you ever seen that?
No, and I fucking refuse. Don't even try it.
Oh, I'm not even gonna get into it. Did you
I
ever
don't
see that
wanna know.
episode of Futurama, Jurassic Park?
No,
I'm not gonna get into that either.
I don't want to get
Or
into
Marley
any
and
of
Me,
it.
which I never saw.
No,
I'll
and I
think
won't
about
see.
rewatching it. But those are different. Those are like something terrible happens to the dog in that movie. Everything ends up fine. This is a very happy ending movie.
In Homeward Bound, yeah, but you have to go
Yeah.
through the emotions to get there, and I don't want it.
Well, things have to happen in movies, Gab.
No,
They can't just be dogs being dogs.
I would love nothing more than a 90-minute clip of dogs just being dogs.
Are you gonna watch the Puppy Bowl?
Obviously. Actually, I don't have cable, so I don't know how.
Do you have Max?
Yeah.
I think it might be on Max.
Max. The Super Bowl also, because I'd like to watch that.
No, the Super Bowl. I think it's on CBS, so it might be on Paramount Plus.
I'm tired of these fucking streaming services.
I don't know. There's too many. Apparently, the NFL commissioner was recently saying that there's going to be more games that are like streaming only, and people are not happy about it. Yeah.
I really just care about whether or not Taylor Swift makes it in time.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I don't care. I watched the Grammys and I was so annoyed every time she was like up there or speaking or anything.
Why?
Like the fact that she's won so many Grammys that she's just using one to announce an album. I'm like, fuck you.
I'm very excited about this album.
Oh my God. And it's the most annoying, bullshitty cliche name I've ever heard. Like the Tortured Poet Society or some shit like that.
No. It's the Tortured Poets Department.
Oh, that's oh my God.
I'm just saying, get it right while you complain
If
about it.
only I was a 13-year-old girl, I'd be so moved.
Well, as a 13-year-old girl, I can tell you it is very moving. One of the songs
The name
is
of the
titled,
album has moved you?
Yeah, well, and I saw the track list. One of the songs is called "But Daddy, I Love Him." Oof, I'm crying already.
Oh my God.
There's another one called "I Can Change Him." No, really, I can.
Are
I'm
you
in.
serious with these song titles? Because this sounds
yeah.
like if Family Guy was making a joke title for like Taylor Swift songs, these would be the songs they'd come up with.
This is what I have seen. The internet has spoken.
I'm gonna shout out better album you should buy. February 16th, Chromeo drops Adult Contemporary, and nobody seems to know who Chromeo is except the people I tell about Chromeo. You should listen to Chromeo. They're funky and they're great
I know Chromeo.
because they're funky and they're great.
Yeah, when I worked at Abercrombie, they used to play a lot of Chromeo.
This is the only time I'm gonna say this. Maybe I should hang out at Abercrombie more then.
Have you seen Abercrombie has they have like evolved with us? They are awesome now.
I think I've been in there just a couple times when I'm at the mall, and I feel like I've seen that they started having football and racing shirts, and I'm like, don't you try and draw me in. There's no stores left at the mall for me, Gab. Do you remember we used to go to the mall like every weekend as kids?
Yeah.
We would
yeah.
go to Suncoast Video and the poster stores and
Yep.
FYE. And I used to hate FYE because I was like, oh man, I like the actual video stores better. Now FYE is the last bastion for me. I'm like,
yeah.
you're all I've got left.
It's so true. Yeah, I remember the poster store. I remember the video store. I mean, we used to like Spencer's and remember Gadgets and Gizmos?
Yeah, where they hound you, where they're
Yeah.
like, please, you gotta buy something.
Well, they hound you. First, they're like, don't touch anything. And then they're like, wait, buy something.
They get
It's
to a
like,
point where they're like, you can touch anything you want. We haven't sold a gadget or a gizmo all day.
it's like, how do you want me to buy it if I can't touch it? Like, what? Have you ever been to Roosevelt Field to the Newbury Comics store?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
That's basically like pop figures and other things.
yeah. Pop figures and vinyl of albums that you don't want and don't have anywhere to play.
Yeah, I'm like, how is this making such a comeback and DVDs are dead? But we're like,
Yeah.
you know what's great? These 1970s record players.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Does Giselle not like Taylor Swift either?
No, she
Yeah.
just likes her more than I do.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
But I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll see her
sure.
at the Super Bowl, so who cares?
Yeah. Everyone's allowed.
Here's another comment from Tucker Nuts. Best animal trio. Sassy was always delivering one-liners.
That is true.
Lillian Fitzroy. Oh, right in the feels, especially when he can't climb out of the mud and he's trying so hard.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
I explained to you how they did it though, and it's fake and it's fine, and that dog was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Remember, I explained in the episode, right?
Yeah, but I don't remember. Can you tell me again?
Yeah, there was a trainer at the top who was calling the dog to come, and then there was a trainer at the bottom who would tell the dog to stay. And because it was muddy, when the dog stayed, the dog would just slide back down.
Okay.
But they had to film it multiple times because if the dog didn't listen to stay, he would just climb right out.
Okay, good. Okay.
He was
Thank
fine.
you.
We're
Thank
all
you.
fine.
Okay.
Mozart D minor said, well, now I'm crying.
Same.
Just some random guy, 92. Dude, I love Homeward Bound so much. I'm glad to see a video on it. I was glad to see a video on it too. Gab was not.
Mm-mm.
Wendy Watson, the bittersweet scene with a bunch of emojis. Evie with coffee. Yay, Shadow, but I still want to cry and don't even know this movie. That's
Do
my
yourself a
favorite
favor.
comment. They're like, I don't know this movie, but from this short, I feel sad for this dog.
Not good.
And last one, Cloudy is Lost. I love, love, love Homeward Bound.
Oh, I'm glad you do, but I will never watch it again.
So we are not doing Homeward Bound 2 Lost in San Francisco next?
No.
Okay. I guess now that we've gone through lots of comments, we can get to the verdicts for Clue.
Yeah.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
Since this was my movie, I will go first. Do I think this is the best movie ever made? No. Do I think this is a movie that you need to watch once a month or quarterly? No. Do I think this movie holds up considering it is from 1985? Yes. Do I think that this movie has moments that are hilarious? Yes. Do I think Tim Curry is a gift from God? Yes. And finally, do I think that the three endings of this movie make it a movie to watch before you die? Absolutely. I don't know too many other movies that do that have like alternate endings that are important or that kind of give you the gift of the multiple ending. I can't think of another way to say multiple endings. I just think it's very creative. It's disappointing to hear that it wasn't intended to be that way, but that it is that way now, in the home video edition. And I love it. I think it's great. All hail Tim Curry. Keep it together. We need you. End of sentence.
God, it was very interesting watching you cross-examine yourself like that, where you were just asking questions and giving answers to you. Okay. I gotta be honest, Gab, I think the movie's pretty bad. I don't think it holds up that well. I don't even think anybody in the cast is that good.
I don't
That's what I
believe
could
you.
have thought. But here's what I also actually think. I think it's decent. There are parts that are pretty funny, but it really gets dragged down by the first two acts. So I'm going to say no. But here's what I actually think. I think
so much
due to the sheer performance of Tim Curry and the breakneck pace of that third act, and only because I've never seen it in a theater, because I've only seen that home video version where you get all three endings, that I am going to say it's a movie to watch before you die. But God forbid, if I'd been one of those people who'd seen it in the theater, I think I would be like, Clue? That movie sucks.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But
yeah,
I think if we can forget about that and just appreciate it as it is now, where it has those three endings, it is brilliant.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think the cast is great. I think literally every single person does a great job, except
Yeah.
apparently leaving as Mr. Bond.
Yeah. He sucks. You really had me. And you know that's the thing. You do that to me all the time where we talk about how good a movie is, and then you're like, well, Gab, I hated it.
You didn't think that was too far? You'd be like, the movie sucks, you suck.
No, because that's what you do. I honestly like kind of half expected it. But that was really good. I never would have thought that you were going to give me three alternate verdicts. That was great.
Honestly,
You're very creative.
Rewatching the movie for the first 2/3 of it, I was like, God, I thought I remembered this movie being better. And then by the very end of the movie, you're like, no, that's a lot of fun. And it's only
Yeah.
because of that third act. That third act is
Yes.
so strong.
And watching it with somebody, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but watching it with somebody who had never seen it, you can feel the pace getting a little faster in anticipation of that third act. And I was like, oh, just you wait, just you fucking wait. And then it hits, and you're like, yes, I love this movie.
Well, yeah, and it's like it's not like it's super slow at the beginning. It's just normal pacing. And as you're watching it, you're like, it's fine. It's a little funny. You know what I mean? That's why if it was only one of these endings, it wouldn't stand out at all. But it's the fact that as you get those three endings, it ramps up so hard and it gives you so much energy that it's like impossible not to feel that energy.
Yeah.
And I can imagine watching it the first time is like an exciting watch by the end because you're like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels very much like a roller coaster where it's like tick, 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 and you're just like getting to the top. And then once you get to the top, sometimes there's like that fake drop, and then there's the huge drop, and you're like, what? Oh, and that's what it felt like.
Yes, if I was gonna be a dick about it, I'd be like, yes, it just feels like I'm going up on the roller coaster for so long that I start to check my watch. But then it was like, oh no, that was cool. There were all those loops at the end and shit.
Yeah. 100%. Whew. Wow, you really had me there for a minute.
That's why I was like, I have to end this sooner because she seems legitimately upset.
I was really like, I was gonna start taking it personally. But I'm glad you had fun watching.
If just for Tim Curry and Michael McKean.
Yeah. Amen.
All right. Is it time to say the things to end the thing?
Yeah. So this is what I'll say. Movies to watch before you die at gmail.com. Anchor.fm/movies to watch. Hall of Pods Networks. Friends. Email. Voice note. Venmo. Linktree. See you next week.
Yeah, this isn't a board game where you can just leave out the pieces and hope people get the instructions later. What Gab said in order there was an email, which you can send those things at, a website where you can send us those voice messages, the link tree below for our friends in the Hall of Pods network. All our link tree is also below with all of our things.
And Venmo.
And Gab's Venmo is in our link tree. And I think that's all the things. Come back next week when we'll talk about something else. I don't have to tell you. You'll just have to see it when it happens.
Yeah. But Dylan, you sure you don't want to give them a clue?
I'm ending it right now. I'm ending it so angrily right now. I didn't even mean to set you up for that, but God damn it. Oh, that was so bad. I loved it.
Well, you tell them it's not true.
It's not true.
Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Ha-ha, so it is true. A double negative. Double negative? You mean you have photographs? That sounds like a confession to me. In fact, the double negative has led to proof positive. I'm afraid you gave yourself away.
Are you trying to make me look stupid in front of the other guests?
Don't need any help from me, sir.
That's right.